welcome to Series 2 of my podcast, Innervation, where we get to hear stories and experiences of incredible women in science and technology. Not only will you get insights into some fascinating innovations, but you may also even relate to their stories, especially if you're a little unconventional or non-conforming. As with all science and technology, what these women do for a living has a real impact on all of our lives, and we often don't realise it. But here on Innervation, I'm also giving women a platform for them to be heard and for us to be inspired and uplifted by what they've learned along their life's journeys, both personally and professionally. This week, I talked to Pavlina Akritas, who is an electrical engineer specialising in lighting design.
My name is Pavlina Akritas. I'm an electrical engineer specialising in lighting design.
So wonderful to meet you. I know that your time must be so limited right now because you've just had a baby. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It has its moments, but it's obviously a wonderful experience. I need to juggle quite a few things. I do like to exercise quite a lot. So, I need to sort of manage sleeping at a certain time in order to be able to wake up before the baby wakes up, so I can fit in my exercise. Then during his first nap, I do my yoga. So it's quite, and then of course you need to change them, bath them, play with them, cook for them. He's on solids now, so it takes quite a bit of time. It's very different to my everyday work that I used to do 9 months ago.
So what is your everyday work?
So I'm an electrical engineer, as I said, specializing in lighting design. My specialty is actually museums, arts and culture buildings. But I ended up doing a few fashion shows as well through that, a bit of retail as well. So it's that sort of more on the artistic side, if I may say.
So how did you get into doing what you're doing? And why was engineering necessary for that?
So, how I became an engineer. So how did I actually become an engineer? It might be a little bit of a boring story because I actually come from Cyprus. That's where I'm from. And my family is actually, my dad owns his own company. He's an engineer. So I sort of had this motivation to become an electrical engineer myself. We're not as lucky in Cyprus as in the UK, where there are all these STEM programs showing people and exposing young people what engineering is all about. So sometimes you need that little push to choose that career path. And it's been really wonderful because I never expected it to be this. I sort of went into it without really expecting anything. I used to play tennis when I was little, so I was only interested in playing tennis for my university. What I studied was really, irrelevant, but I really fell in love with it. So it was quite an unexpected surprise for me to come to where I am now.
So what specifically about engineering did you fall in love with?
So I love that you can actually see what you create. You work on something for so long, so hard, and all of a sudden you're standing within the space. The way you experience lighting, the way it influences people as well, their well-being. It's really an amazing experience. I also love seeing the client and them being really happy because they really invest their money on this project, right? So it's really wonderful to see how happy they are as well with the end result. This is what I personally love about being an engineer, is being able to be within the spaces and experience the space itself and how it affects people and their mood as well.
I must say, I've never really connected engineering with lighting, because engineering is generally assumed to be sort of big machines, nuts and bolts, like systems, and lighting seems more kind of the interior design of things rather than the operating system.
It's a combination of science and art, really. So you really need to understand how the space is being used, how the lighting affects the way you visualize a space, so how light reflects within a space, how it bounces off different surfaces, how it falls with on your face, for example. So it's really understanding how the eye absorbs light, how it affects our mood. Daylighting, for example, is well known that it improves health and well-being. So it's a combination of both science and art, and I think that's what's so beautiful about it. It's not just something very artistic. So you need both those skills.
So back in Cyprus, is that where you grew up?
Yes.
So what did you have to do in order to get onto an engineering program?
So I did go to an English school. So that's where my high school, where I did my high school, in an English-speaking school. So we followed the English curriculum. So I had to do GCSEs and A levels. And then because I did study in the US, so that's where my first degree is for, I of course had to do all the necessary examinations in order to be accepted at the University of Illinois, where I did my engineering degree. I then did a master's in lighting, so specializing more in lighting in London at UCL. And that's how I ended up at Arup doing lighting design.
Wow. And what was it about your engineering degree that helps you today to do something that's so artistic?
I mean, engineering gives you a lot of skills. It helps you think outside the box, not be afraid of complexity. So, if something new comes, you just want to tackle it and find out how to make it real. And it's also, studying engineering gives you this love and passion to think about progress and technology and science. So you're always curious, looking how you can push the edge. So this is what engineering basically helped me in my everyday life. It's not really, can I do it? It's how can I do it? That's more the question that I always ask myself.
And how do you do it? Like, are you using CAD? Like, what actual engineering tools do you use?
Yes, so we do have a lot of modeling software that are specializing in lighting. So it's ray tracing softwares. So that's more the technical aspect. But the beautiful thing about lighting is also about playing with actual lights, because it's one thing modeling it. There's only so far you can go. And it's very different actually experiencing the light. So a lot of our work, yes, it's calculations, but a lot of it is also playing with lights, seeing how they actually, so mock-ups, doing a lot of mock-ups with light, building scale models, or going into the actual building, and installing a little corner for a mock-up. And it's really nice because it makes you also be very collaborative with the client as well. So you bring the client there, you show them an example of what the space will feel like. So it's you really are very hands-on with the client as well, with other engineers, other collaborators, the design team. So it's not just sitting on a chair, basically, just doing calculations and modeling, drawings, etc. A lot of it is really playing, getting samples, getting in a space, building little scale models. And I think that's the beauty of it as well, because you really see it and you really get into the moment, not just yourself, but the rest of the design team as well.
So what's been your favorite project?
My favorite project. So it's quite interesting because many people expect one particular project to be my favorite one because it won a few awards, that's the Broad Museum in Los Angeles. But my favorite project is actually the Gagosian Art Gallery here in London, at Grosvenor Hill. And the reason for that is where the engineering aspect, the thinking outside the box came about, is because we were asked to create the daylight experience in a space that didn't really have daylight or skylights. When we found out it wasn't possible to create skylights, the client came to us and asked us, well, can you do it with artificial light in real time? So, basically replicating in real time what's happening outside to what is happening inside. And this is something that hasn't happened before at that point in time. And this is where you're like, well, how can I do it? It was sort of, it hasn't happened. You're thinking, can I really do it? How can I do it? And I remember me playing with code, and I haven't really written code for a very long time at that point in time. And me going, I was actually in Cyprus at that point. It was the Easter holiday, taking hourly measurements of the outside weather conditions, trying to understand how they work, developing this code, spending, and when you really get in that mood, you really want to create something, you really get lost, right? Those are the hours pass and you're like, no, I'm going to do it. And so I've created this thing, and I wasn't really sure if it was going to work because it was me on the computer, but I remember when we went to commission it, I remember there being journalists in the space because they invited them to see the space. And the person who was doing the actual controls for the building, flipping on the switch, and it was a partly cloudy day, so you could see through the windows how the outside was. So when there was a cloud passing, everything would become very dark, very blue. And when the cloud passed, it became very bright, very warm. So that's how you experience daylight. And I remember him flipping the switch, and you could really feel that experience within the space. And I was really shocked because I didn't really expect, you create this thing and you're like, is it going to work? Is it not really? And then I was so shocked about it working. And the journalists were like, wow, and I was so, that moment feeling so proud of yourself that you've created something that, you were questioning if you were able to create. So that was my favorite project because it was this sort of thinking outside the box, taking you by surprise sometimes, look what I've created. And that project is very dear to my heart because it ended up bringing other projects that I never expected to work on, like, for example, the fashion show. So that those came through that project. The architect came and saw the end result, and he was so happy that they contacted me. I never expected to do fashion shows, It's like, it's not the sort of thing you think as an engineer, I'm going to be doing fashion shows. And then, a bit of retail as well. So that experience opened other doors that you don't expect to do. And that's why that project is very dear to my heart.
Gosh, so the idea of coding, are you coding light bulbs? It just sounds incredibly complex. Can you simplify what you do as an engineer?
So in that particular project was coding, so creating a relationship with the exterior and the interior, because that's what that particular project required. So if this is happening outside, creating the code to replicate it inside. Then there is so that was that particular project. Then there is the sort of code you write for daylighting. So you basically create a code per se of the outside of the exterior. So a particular day in the year, and then how does that reflect in the interior space? So, for example, that's what happens in a museum environment. So, you start modeling with code the exterior sky conditions, and then how do those reflect within the inside environment? Because the museum is a very specific space. You cannot have too much light for conservation reasons. So, that they can destroy artifacts if you have too much light or sun. So basically modeling the exterior daylit conditions, and how do those reflect inside through the skylights, for example, etc. And then there is also modeling the electric lighting. So modeling the photometry of a particular light source, and how, like a light within your space, and how does it fall around? So how does the light hit the different walls? So there's different types of modeling and coding that follows that in order to create the simulations But as I mentioned before, a big part of that is also the mock-ups and playing with actual light as well.
Gosh, I mean, as a little girl, did you ever think that this is what you would end up doing?
Not really. As I told you, I used to be an athlete. So the only thing that I was really interested when I was really young was, how can I get better at playing tennis? Let me just spend. I mean, I was always, I always liked to do really well. So I was very good in school. I really love maths. I remember waking up before school and doing math just for fun because I really enjoyed doing that. For me, I was very happy if my studies involved any sort of mathematics. Was the sort of experience that I had, and it's actually quite hard when you're really young to know what you do for the rest of your life. You're choosing your courses when you're 15, 16. So it's really hard to know what you actually will be happy from age 22 to, 65. So I was quite lucky, personally, to find something that I really enjoy. And I hope many people watching this video as well can understand the advantages of being an engineer and how diverse it really is.
So did your career turn out like this because you were always following what you love?
Yes, I think being passionate about what you do really helps because it helps you connect with other people. It helps you create the best that you possibly can. So I think passion is something that is very, very important in every job because passion really makes you want to do the best possible.
So what are the challenges that you face doing the job that you do?
So I think one of the main challenges is sometimes being brought too late in a project. So while you can do your best, the result is really great, but it's a bit disappointing sometimes if you knew it could be amazing. So I think that's one of the challenges that sometimes we face. Sometimes in lighting, they might think it's secondary, for example, but it's not really. I think all disciplines should be brought in as soon as possible so we can actually collaborate and make have the best possible outcome.
Gosh, that's really making me think of a project where I was brought in later into the mix. There was lots of people involved and I was brought in quite late, and I totally understand what you're saying, where the earlier you're brought in, the more you can be like collaborating to improve the overall sort of standard of the project. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that you call yourself an engineer, because it just seems so highly mathematical and codified. And I guess I must have like a prejudice that engineering is kind of like tools and kind of nuts and bolts. And I mean, I know that that's not the case, but it's amazing to think that engineering can be considered as being involved in something like lighting. I think maybe the issue here is that I've never actually thought about what goes into lighting a space. Mm-hmm. So can you sort of like switch the light on, shed some light on this whole sector?
So I think one of the main issues sometimes is that have this misconception of what engineering is based on what you see on the internet when you Google the word engineer. I mean, a lot of work has been put through to change this idea of what engineer really looks like. And it's difficult sometimes to change it, especially if there is so much of, the white male with the hard hat, and the really cool thing about engineering, I think, is that it's very diverse, as I mentioned before. It's probably the most diverse discipline that there is because, you're interested in lights like me. you can become an engineer. Your interest in is Formula One. Well, somebody needs to build that car, right? And who does that? An engineer. You're interested in water. There is, water turbines. Hydraulics engineering. You're interested in beauty. There is somebody looking at materials that are, as pure as possible. There is somebody there, an engineer, looking into these details. And not everybody wears a hat, a hard hat. I personally wear it when I need to go on site, and that happens when the project, at the very late part of the project, most of the time, I don't wear the hard hat. It's only when I need to be on site doing something very specific. Other than that, I'm just like every other person going to the office, wearing my dresses, my high heels, or, jeans. I think that's is breaking the bias, of what engineering really is, and understanding that everything around us probably has an engineer behind it. So I think it's the same with lighting. It's finding something that you love, and how can you bring, where is engineering involved in that specific type, and how can you use your engineering skills, thinking outside the box, being curious, thinking about science and technology and making it better.
I think there's also another myth that to go into engineering, you've got to be really good at maths. And it does sound like you are, but is it a myth or is that true?
Well, actually, I was very poor in physics, which is another thing you need in engineering. To tell you the truth, so when I was young in school, I as I said, I followed the British system, and I did single science, which was very little, physics, chemistry, biology was very, and then I decided to do A-level physics, which is quite unusual, going from single science to physics. And it's not something that I was very strong at. So, I was good in maths, but maths doesn't make you necessarily a very well qualified engineer either. So I don't think you need to be great at every subject. A lot of it is learning on the job, and there's lots of apprentices there as well. So there is lots of, there is options of how to get into engineering that don't necessarily require somebody to be heavily engineered, science, physics, etc.
I guess it's really just about having that genuine curiosity and interest in something.
Yes, and
qualification you need.
And a lot of it is learning on the job as well. And as I said, passion helps a lot. In every job, I think, not just engineering.
So, last couple of questions. You recently, as we introduced in the beginning, had a baby. How has it been doing what you do and combining that with motherhood?
Well, I'm still on maternity leave, actually. So it's, it's been wonderful. It's been different. I need to be very organized with my time. Making his food, fitting in my exercise. I am sort of still addicted to exercising quite a lot. It's my time, and that requires some sacrifices usually. But it's never a sacrifice for the little baby. It's probably just sacrifice of me having a little break. But it's been wonderful. I quite like creating things for him as well. So when he was younger, I used to create a lot of his toys. So just playing with him, being able to play. So I'm not playing with lights at the moment. I'm playing more with other things. But it's interesting to see how a little baby experiences things for the first time. And it's just a reminder of how sometimes engineers experience new things.
What have you built?
Oh, just some toys, So, you don't really need to spend a lot sometimes. You just need to create for example, a rope with balloons, and then you put water in them, or with bells. It's little toys that keep him preoccupied for not a very long time, unfortunately. But that's babies. Their attention span is probably worse than every adult out there looking at social media now.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's amazing to have an engineering mum, because the toys must be so fun. Like, a lot of creativity and kind of, I don't know, prototype kind of vibe to the toys, which is really awesome.
I mean, he's still very, very little, but I'm looking forward to him being a bit older so we can actually build actual things together.
Would you say that you are someone that is very much sort of using their hands, like hands-on building, designing type of person?
Oh yes. This is what I was saying, that a lot of it is doing mock-ups, because it's really fun building things. I don't know, it's this little kid inside of you that some people lose, but in our case, it's just extending that. What else can I build? And it's really cool because you build it and then you show other people, and you're all together playing together with these little mock-ups that you create.
Have you always been like that?
Yes, I think so. Maybe when I was an athlete, I didn't have I was playing differently then. Yes, but I think I was always more hands-on rather than. I think I was more hands-on. I just love looking at things. It helps me understand principles a lot better. So I think I'm more visual, which is probably why I'm a lighting designer as well.
Yeah. So for young girls who are thinking, or not just young girls, but for any kids who are sort of like figuring out what they're going to do with their careers and the subjects they're going to pick and the directions they're going to go in, what would you recommend? Like, do you have any top tips for pursuing a career in engineering?
I think find out what they're passionate about, as I said. And then there's definitely a career in engineering they can follow to meet that passion, whether it's fashion, as I said, beauty, space, airplanes, whatever they're passionate about, there is a career in engineering they can follow. And it gives you a lot of opportunities. I mean, another thing that I love is that you can go to different countries, for example, if you're, that's what engineering really brings, because a project that is not necessarily a computer-based project is the real thing, and it gives you a chance to move around the world, meet different cultures, different people. So my recommendation is find out what you're passionate about. There's definitely an engineering career behind that, and go for it, because it's really wonderful, and it's the sky's the limit, really. There is nothing to stop them from doing that, and they don't need to be great in science, as I mentioned, but just be passionate, and I think that's all you need to become a great engineer.
Now you're working for Arabs now, right?
Yes, yeah.
Correct. So to get to sort of where you are today, what would be the first step?
Well, I think it's typical to every career. I think is have a background that correlates to what you want to do, and then start exploring what is out there, what really interests you, and go for it. Apply. And once you find something that you really like, just keep stepping, be really interested in it, give it your all as much as you can, and that will take you to a higher and higher step, because it's really visible if somebody likes what they do, and I think that's very important to be able to progress in any career, really.
And then final question, like, I don't know anything about the sort of gender ratios or representation in lighting engineering. Are you in a minority in your field?
So in lighting, it's around 50-50, I would say. So it's quite diverse, and it's not just males, females. It's also different cultures, so different races. So it's quite open, which is quite nice as well, because we all are treated equally, and you don't feel like there is some gender bias or anything like that.
Well, I must say it's really kind of inspiring to see someone that has explored a very sort of less known industry. And, it's sounds cheesy, but honestly, you've really shed a light on something that is that we're all in the dark about. Get these jokes all the time, but yeah, no, I really, it's so inspiring to meet someone that has followed her passion and her interest and her skills and her talents, and you seem like someone very dedicated to whatever it is you do, and I don't know, I can imagine that you're not someone that walks into a room and doesn't notice the lighting. It must be with you 24 hours a day.
Not just the lighting, everything, right? I think once you start noticing things, you just look at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really felt that when I was especially doing my doctorate in looking at how air flows in spaces. Like I literally couldn't enter a room without sort of like visualizing it and picturing it. You must be the same with lighting. It must... that
you're an engineer, you enter a space and just go like this.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with me today to give us an insight into what you do. It sounds absolutely fascinating, and all the best with bringing up your little one and combining that with what appears to be an incredibly interesting career.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope it helped inspire other people, other generations or younger generations or any other person to pursue a career in engineering, because it's really amazing what you can do.
Perfect. Wonderful. And that's it.
Oh, thank you. Let me know if you need anything else.
I think I would actually like to include you in Engineering and Technology magazine, which is a magazine published by the Institute of Engineering and Technology, because it was just such an unusual career you have. And so, yeah, that's a monthly article that I write. So I'd love to include you in that, and they need a high resolution headshot. But once I figure out when in the schedule I can write your article, in touch about a high res photo.
I hope it was useful, the conversation. I stumbled a little bit in one of the questions, and I wasn't sure if I answered it very well.
I found it really natural, really a joy to listen to. Just really, it felt very authentic. And I think that's the most important thing for the podcast and the YouTube video. The book, I'm going to translate everything that you've said into text, and then it will be like a 1,000-word profile. So, but yeah, no, you came across really well.
When is the book coming out?
March 2023. That's the plan.
I think you said that in your email as well.
Yeah. I hope we stick to it, because with everything that's going on in the world, you just never know.
And the podcast and the YouTube.
I think it will probably be like maybe 3 weeks to a month. I've got a few people in the pipeline. I don't know the exact date.
Just let me know. It would be nice to share it as well.
Yeah. Where would you prefer to share it? Like, are you an Instagram person, LinkedIn?
Everything. I don't mind. Wherever you prefer.
I think we connected over LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
So I usually post it on LinkedIn anyway, so you'll be able to repost.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
I probably won't be getting in touch. I'll probably just post it. So definitely keep an eye out.
Okay. Yeah. If you will tag me though, I assume on the podcast, so it will appear. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you on Instagram?
Yes, as well. Yeah.
Okay. What's your Instagram handle?
It's P like my first initial, and then Akritas like my full last name. Mind you, I don't post a lot of engineering things there.
How do you spell tags?
So P.
Yeah.
AKRI.
Yeah.
TAS.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I'll include that as well.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Have a good day.
End.
Yeah. Bye. Oh, enjoy France. Oh, lucky you. I'm so jealous. I wish I was there again.
Right now, I'm just like, I just want everyone to be safe.
Oh yeah. Well, in Paris, at least it's okay. It's you're not that close, thankfully.
Yeah, we're just leading the EU right now for 6 months. So.
Cool. Have a good day. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, and please do subscribe to this podcast and maybe even rate and review it if you can. The more ratings and reviews, then the more interest from those trusty algorithms, which could help to increase the reach of this show. And you can watch the video recording of this conversation on YouTube on my new series called Esteemed. It's all about self-discovery, self-evolution, and inclusivity on innovation. Let's all strive to be in the best versions of ourselves and celebrate others being themselves too. As always, be kind and loving, and I wish you all a great week.